have the mold prepped for the first half to be poured. We're going to be using a product called Mold Star, and it's actually Mold Star 30, and where it's a two-part silicone rubber. Actually, it's a platinum silicone rubber, and it's a 1-to-1 mix by volume, so we don't have to weigh anything. I've already got it measured out, each in their own cups, and it's always best to do your raw product into its own individual measuring cup and then pour it into a combined cup for mixing. This product, as most do, requires thorough stirring before use, and it may take 10-15 minutes of stirring to get the bottom to break up and thin down into the mixture so that you don't have solid chunks. So you just have to keep stirring and scraping and mashing it against the side of the container until you get a smooth, when you pull your stir stick out, you get a smooth, even mixture flowing off the stick with no clumps. So with that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put in our materials. Nice little twist of the wrist keeps everything inside. Stir stick, and we're just going to do just stir it up. And what we're going to be looking for is a continuous homogeneous mixture with no streaks of color. Scrape the sides of your container frequently. Scrape the bottom of the container frequently. You're trying not to whip air into the product as you're mixing it. And you've got some time to work because you've got plenty of pot life to take your time and make sure you get this stirred well. So we're going to let this sit for just a minute and allow some air bubbles to rise up out of it. We will get air bubbles when we pour it, but try to get most of them out of it before we do the pour, and then we'll essentially start pouring in one corner and keep pouring into that corner and allow the mold to fill until it's completed. Before that, we need to put some mold release in, and so we'll spray the mold down with mold release. Okay, so we have our mold release. We'll make sure we get a good fog of this product, especially on the wood. Mixture's degassing nice. And this stuff dries really fast. I'm sure I got plenty in that cup because that'll be hard to pull. Let that dry for a minute or two. Doesn't take very long. Make sure our mixture is good. Okay. We're going to start our pour. I'm going to start in one corner. Continue to pour and let it fill the mold cavity. We may run over and fill that cup a little bit individually. That's a large volume there. And we'll come back to our corner here. Continue pouring here. looks like we may have just about the right amount mixed up. Maybe just a little short. Getting a little low on the corner over here. Anticipated that. Hopefully quickly enough. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to coat and let that set down in the material slightly. Still see some bubbles coming up. That's normal. It'll continue to degas like that until it starts setting up. So we'll let it set up. Once the cure is done, we'll come and pull our mold boards off and pull the clay out, flip everything over, and start the other side. Well, it's the next morning. Our silicone is set up. Off camera, my popsicle stick reinforcement floated to the top, started coming out. So I broke off a paint stick and weighted it down with 2 nuts. You can see protruding from the silicone here to get it to sink down into the material and help stiffen that up. It looks like we got a pretty good pour, but you never know till you pop the sides off and take a look at what you got. So we will do that now. All right, here we go. Easy enough. We got some leakage through right here in this corner. If you can see that or not. And so it's actually leaked all the way down here. So we have silicone where we did not spray mold release because we didn't think we'd have to. So that corner may be a little tough to get off. Pretty ugly, but you see the 2 levels that we've got now. Yeah, that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Off the bottom, and we have 1 side remaining. And I have very little leverage over it. But, these blocks. We had quite a bit of leakage. Did not get my clay put in very well. So we had quite a bit of leakage drop down through an open spot here, down into the bottom. So that explains that. I had a little leaker right here. So All's well though. So what we're left with now should be removing the clay and the leaked material. I'll have to come back and separate all the urethane out from my modeling clay so I can reuse it. We'll get that done. I'll leave that block of wood in there since it's encased pretty nicely. But this is what we're left with. So our next project will be to bring our mold boards. We got them cleaned up for our mold box and reinstall them around the perimeter of this, and then we'll make another pour covering all of this volume. Some little bits of cleanup of clay, but if this were going to be a production piece, I'd have taken a little more care and done some things differently, but since this is a one-off and we're going to basically make one part and be done with this, it was just better to be expedient about it and get it done. So we'll get this cleaned up and start installing the, once we get the mold boards cleaned up, we'll start installing the mold box. Okay, we're back now. As you can see, I've got the mold box installed, and I've already clayed up the corners to keep them from leaking and cleaned everything. So we're ready to apply mold release, which I like to be pretty liberal with mold release because I don't like fighting getting my parts out. There are some disadvantages to that. It can cause some cure problems sometimes with some materials, but the Mold Star from Smooth On, I've never had an issue with it. Let that set for a minute or so. Now I'm going to go ahead and combine my part A and part B. As before, on the mix, we'll blend it until the color is smooth, consistent. Make sure we scrape the sides and bottom. Okay, got a pretty good blend on that. Another shot of mold release. Give that a few seconds to clean up. Set in there. Dries very, very quickly, so. And we're ready to pour. And again, we're going to pour into the corner and let it seek its own level. Okay, and we've covered our parts, so anything else we put in there is just extra. So I'm not going to be too judicious about cleaning up the container. Kind of making a mess this time. So we got a pretty good pour. Most of our bubbles are coming up here, the corner we poured in. Hardly see any at all popping up over there. So we'll let this cure, and then we'll be ready to demold, and then demold. If you notice, I didn't say this, but I did not take the core part out of the part A of the mold. I left them together. Sometimes when you try to take them out and put them back in, you don't get them back in quite as well as what you poured it like, and so you get some deformation in your part. So we always leave that part attached to your first half of your mold, and then clean it up and put it back in, both together, the part A of the mold and the model or core, both of them intact, never having taken them apart. So all this needs is a cure, and we should have a mold to make a part. All right, we've let this set up overnight. Not sticky, not tacky. So it's time to unmold it. Now, I forgot to clay the first portion of the mold all the way down the side, so I got quite a bit of leakage in the corners, on the ends especially. And so it may be a little tough to get this to come apart. I'll have to work on it here. Yeah, it's gonna, there we go. Not as bad as I had feared. As you can definitely see some leakers down here. And some leakage on the back side. Not too bad. All right. Clay, get it recovered. And now the fun part. We'll try to separate these two. Looks like one continuous block, so I'm afraid leakage may make this tough. I'm looking for a seam, and I'm not finding one. So we may have bonded two together with our leaks. It may take a little bit of work to get this apart. Once we get one corner, we can kind of work it from there. Now this is going to take some work. So the leakage down the sides has sealed the top and the bottom together. And I'm going to have to trim that back to be able to get it out. All the way across the end leaked. So yeah, in fact it leaked all the way into the bottom down here. So basically I've encased the two together. I got a good starting spot right here. If I pull this board out, and even leak down the side of the board, so inside. So I definitely did not seal that anywhere near well enough. So we will have to do some work with the knife and see if we can't get these to separate. See, they're not bonding, or they're bonded completely together here. Oh, no, there okay. So maybe we will get it out of there without having to resort to the knife. likely at this point. Now, I'm going to have to get in there, cut it apart, and see if I can salvage it. I did pretty well. Okay, after a little judicious use of the knife, we've got this where it's going to come apart. And so what we've got is there is our top section. And our bottom section, you see I ended up breaking the handle off to get it out. See if we can get this out now. Okay. And that's out. So, nice smooth finish there. Finish there, it leaves a little to be desired, but it'll be fine. Like I said, this is a one-off casting, so I'm not too worried about aesthetics in the mold at this point. And a little more mold prep, let's see. It'll key back together. I didn't put any keys in it like you normally would. Normally I like to use acorn nuts sticking up and sticking down. And that allows you to have some keys to kind of joint this together. But as raggedly as this is torn apart, it should puzzle piece back together and be fine. So, not going to worry about that. What remains, we have to have a way to get our epoxy material into the mold cavity and a way for air to escape. And so, that's what we'll take up in our next installment. And we'll be cutting those gates and sprues into the mold and casting the epoxy and demolding it in that upcoming video. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe, like, and love to hear comments. This did not go to plan. This is by far the worst episode I've had demolding a casting before. So. And it's likely old mold release and insufficient prep is what got me in that situation. So learn from that mistake.